Alright, welcome everybody. So, allow me to explain what's going on. First, my channel is divided into two groups of people. A very large group of people that really like to see Tron content, and a very vocal minority that followed me when I only did Jank, that like to see Jank content. The plan is, if at all possible, and this is not necessarily always going to be the case, but whenever possible, I will try to upload an additional video whenever I upload a Tron video, to try and get both crowds satisfied. So, any day that there's a Tron video, I will do my best to upload a second video. It will come out about an hour after the Tron video. And today, I was starting to work on some budget magic content, and of course, where else to start with budget magic but Monored. And I was looking at Monored, and the only three classifications of cards cost any money. Number 1, Mana Base. Number 2, Soulscar Mage. And number 3, Sideboard cards. Because almost all Mono-Red decks Sideboard Blood Moon. And I got to thinking about this, and I was like, if I was going to build a budget deck, we're not going to run Soulscar, we can't run a good mana base, and sideboard cards are not great. Like, they just cost too much. So, I started building a Mono-Red deck, and I tested it in some 2-mans, and I never wanted the sideboard. Like, I built an all-in, as fast as possible Mono-Red deck, and I never wanted to sideboard, because then I would lose my speed, and I would lose my competitive advantage. So here's a deck I'm calling No Sideboard All-In Red. And it's basically 8-whack with Devastating Summons, and Kuldaltha Rebirth, to go as wide as possible, as quick as possible for the minimum amount of mana. And I am running these lands because I have them. You don't have to. In fact, if you don't, this entire deck is like $5. Because I left out the expensive sideboard cards, Soulscar Mage, and you don't need the lands that I'm running. If you have them, run them. Run them in any combination that you have them. If you have one Prismatic Vista or one Bloodstained Mire, run it, because it's competitive to do so. But you don't need to. So, we're going to take this deck, with no sideboard, into a competitive league. Now let's go. Should be a pretty quick league and a pretty quick video. I do have the right deck, hang on, right? Yes. Okay. Play league match. No, it was really interesting. I was playing some 2-mans, and I played against Blitz, and even though they had 2 Dragon's Claws on board, I still beat them, because they stopped being aggro to try and play control, and it was really funny. Alright, this looks like a good hand. We'll keep. So, Prismatic Vista lets you do what I'm about to do right now. We have no creature we want to play on turn 1 because Bushwhacker. So we're going to start Prismatic Vista, and we're going to pass the turn. At my opponent's end step, we're going to fetch a Mountain and Lightning Bolt. But my opponent has no idea what I'm playing right now, so they cycle Street Wraith. This is bad because if my opponent's playing Thoughtseize effects, we might get utterly destroyed, but doesn't look like that's what's going to happen. So crack Prismatic Vista, get a Mountain, Lightning Bolt my opponent. Untap, we draw. Reckless Bushwhacker. Play Bloodstained Mire. Crack Bloodstained Mire. Get a Snow-Covered Mountain. Cast a Memnite. Okay, we have 2 options. We can Simian Spirit Guide, Devastating Summons, and then Bushwhacker. Or we can just cast Bushwhacker. And I think just casting Bushwhacker this turn is better, because if we get another land, Simian Spirit Guide becomes quite good. So, hit our opponent for 4. And look at that, our opponent's already at 11. And they have a painful mana base. Even if they play a big blocker, opponent says your deck, heart. Okay, opponent plays Burning Tree Emissary, so it looks like they're doing the same thing we are. Burning Tree, Burning Tree, Burning Tree, Bushwhacker. Alright. Opponent swings for a ton. We untap. We draw Bushwhacker. So here's the plan. Exile Simian Spirit Guide. Devastating Summons. Surge Bushwhacker. Go to combat. Kill our opponent. I want you to know that even without the Prismatic Vista, our opponent's deck costs more. And look at that. No decision making that has to be had. My opponent is likely going to sideboard and probably has things that will help them. They probably will have life gain. They might have something even worse. But we are going to run without a sideboard. Okay, we have to mulligan. We do need a mana source. That is quite unfortunate because mulliganing here is a big deal. Alright, so we're going to keep. We put back a Devastating Summons. We never want more than one Devastating Summons, but we're running 4 because we always want to have at least one. And our opponent's going to start Wooded Foothills. Our best possible top deck right now is Simian Spirit Guide. Okay, looks like our opponent is going to Burning Tree Chain on turn 1. Okay, Herbalists. Narnum Renegade. We untap. We draw another Rebirth, which is not great. Play Prismatic Vista. Crack Prismatic Vista. Get a Mountain. Play Ornithopter. Rebirth. Pass the turn. Okay. Opponent plays a Dryad Arbor. Which I guess technically might be playable in this deck. Like if I had Wooded Foothills, we could play Dryad Arbor as like an additional creature we could turn a land into. It's really sad that red does not have the creature land, because I think it makes more sense in red necessarily, but... Okay, Simian Spirit Guide would be our best top deck. Bloodstained Mire is somewhat okay. So play Bloodstained Mire. Go to combat. And we are going to attack. Okay, no blocks for our opponent. Why would they? They play whack. They play whack. So... Okay. Narnum Renegade. Simian Spirit Guide. Whacker? Oh no, because it's Dryad Arbor. Oh no, okay, Whacker, yeah. That makes sense. This opponent is going to get in for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We go to 3. Fetch up a Mountain. Untap. Draw Prismatic Vista. Play Mountain. Devastating Summons. Surge Bushwhacker. Go to combat. Kill our opponent. Opponent says GG, and I attempted a GG there. And we won. Round 1, no sideboard, versus the quote-unquote better version of our deck. We're a little more Glass Cannon, but that's the point. We never not want to be Glass Cannon. We do not want to dilute the combo. We want to just beat face. And I really think unless our opponent is playing Nourishing Shoal, World Spine, or Autochthon Worm, we're probably going to get there. This is my second cup of regular caffeine coffee today. Alright. Round 2, here we go. Ooh, good hand. We'll keep. Okay, opponent starts Urza's Mind. Urza's Mind. It's Tron. So Tron might be a little bit of a tough matchup. We'll see. We draw a Goblin Grenade. So start Prismatic Vista. Fetch a Mountain. Play Goblin Guide. Go to combat. Attack for 2. So our best draw would be Reckless Bushwhacker. Opponent goes to 18. Okay, they are going to have turn 3 Tron. We draw Ornithopter. So play a Mountain. We have no haste creatures this turn. Go to combat. Attack for 2. They reveal a Chromatic Sphere. Okay. We're definitely playing Burning Tree and Signal Pest this turn. We could Goblin Grenade as well. But I think if our opponent kills one creature and not all of them, they don't kill Goblin Guide, they kill Signal Pest. Nah, you know, I guess we just run this out. It is technically better. It dodges Ugin as their board wipe. Yeah, we're not going to Goblin Grenade this turn. We technically could, but we're not going to. We're going to save it for potentially ending the game. Okay, Power Plant. So they got to have Worm Coil. Or Karn Great Creator. And Snaring Bridge does not save them. They get Walking Ballista, so they can use that to take out Signal Pest. Okay. They play a Sphere. We untap. We draw. Simian Spirit Guide. Okay. So I think we actually have to attack and kill Karn here. I don't think we can let our opponent, which really sucks. Do we just keep attacking face? No, they can almost certainly wish for a Worm Coil, and that would be the end of the game, so we do have to attack Karn here. Okay. Opponent draws a Sanctum of Ugin. So kill Karn. we are going to play the secret hidden mode of our mana monkey here, which is a 3-mana 2/2 creature. I know, very rare. Okay, opponent cracks for green, Ancient Stirrings. They get an Ugin. They will have the mana to play Ugin, so opponent can -3 and take out basically our entire board, which I think that means we have lost this game finally. Maybe not. We'll see. I am going to continue to play this out. It's not like our deck gets any better after sideboarding. Alright. And that one will be game. Yeah. Okay. So opponent knows we're some kind of hyper-fast mono-red. But this time, we will be on the play. Were we on the play last time? I don't remember. 5 turns is too long to remember. Alright, yeah, our opponent was on the play there. So, I think if we had been on the play, we probably would have won. We'll play first. It's a little risky, but I will still keep this. If we draw, like, land, this hand is crazy bonkers. If we draw a land, this hand is good. Opponent has mulligan to 5, mulligan to 4. So best top deck would be land. Next best top deck would be Simian Spirit Guide. Opponent is thinking about mulliganing to 3, I think. Or deciding what to put back for their hand of 4. Okay? They put back 3 cards. We start Mountain, Signal Pest, Memnite, Ornithopter. Pass the turn. Okay, we really want to top deck a land. Opponent starts a land, Chromatic Star. We untap. We draw another Devastating Summons. So we're just going to bolt. Go to combat. Attack for 3. Okay, opponent cracks for green. They play a Power Plant. And pass. Nothing to use the green mana on. Okay. We draw a Snow-Covered Mountain. Whack. Go to combat. Attack. Opponent goes to 5. They have Tron. They play Walking Ballista. And Chromatic Star. Okay. They kill Signal Pest. And pass. We draw Ornithopter. Go to combat. Attack here and here. Opponent can block one and kill the other if they want. Okay. So they lose their Ballista. We're going to hold the Ornithopter in hand just in case we draw Reckless Bushwhacker. Opponent cracks for green, draws a card. Plays a Chromatic Star. Cracks for green, draws a card. Plays a map. Cracks map. Gets a Blast Zone. Alright. And Blast Zone on 1. We untap and we draw Bushwhacker. So, cast Ornithopter. Surge Bushwhacker. Go to combat. Attack for 4. Take our opponent to 1. They play a map. They crack a map. They get a forest. They play a forest. They have 6 mana. We have to dodge Thragtusk, Wormcoil, another Walking Ballista. I think we got there. I think we got there because we dodged removal in the form of Blast Zone with our strange hand. Opponent has been in the tank for a significant amount of time. That or I'm lagging out. Okay, opponent concedes the game. It's not like we're sideboarding. Honestly, I think the biggest risk is as long as we don't run into a deck that plays Chalice of the Void on turn 1, we should be fine. Okay, opponent will be on the play, which is a significant advantage. Although, this is really not a bad hand. I think we do have to keep. We'd like to draw like land Bushwhacker. Okay, opponent mulligans to 6. We are going to keep. They mulligan to 5. They mulligan to 4. They mulligan to 3. So my Tron opponent kept a hand of 3. We should win this. They didn't start Tron land, but they are playing an Ancient Stirrings. But it does get a Power Plant. Okay, that is quite reasonable. We untap. We draw an Ornithopter, so play land, play Memnite, play Ornithopter, rebirth, sack Ornithopter. Pass the turn. Opponent plays Power Plant, Sylvan Scrying, they get a Mine, we untap, we draw Bushwhacker, so play Goblin Guide, go to combat, hit our opponent for 6, where you reveal Chromatic Sphere, so that's probably what they're playing next turn. Opponent plays Mine, plays Chromatic Sphere, cracks it for green, Plays a star, cracks it for green, passes. Okay. We draw Snow-Covered Mountain. So we go to combat. Attack for a lot. Opponent reveals Karn on top of their deck. They go to 8. We'll Rebirth, sacking Memnite. And we are going to Goblin Grenade now, taking them to 3. We don't want them to play like Tronland Ugin, so this makes Bolt lethal, this makes land lethal, and our opponent concedes, taking down Tron. No sideboard red. If I 5-0 with this deck, people will know I am a man to be feared. Alright, I'll see you guys in round 3. Here we go. This hand does not have enough early game. We actually have to mulligan. Alright, this we can keep. We're going to put back Bloodstained Mire. I'm going to keep 2 lands, and I don't want to deck thin because I do want to draw a 3rd for Devastating Summons, as that is one of our best damage lines here. Fetch, Shock, and Thoughtseize. Man, opponents just kill themselves nowadays, don't they? They probably take Devastating Summons, or a Whacker. They could also take Memnite, but I think Devastating Summons is the most representative damage here, and I think they actually have to take that. But starting off at 15 versus a deck that kills you as fast as this one does is not a ideal scenario. We're going to start Signal Pest, which is one of the best top decks we could possibly have. We can play out a Memnite, but I think I'm going to hold it in hand, basically to make Reckless Bushwhacker a little easier to cast. It's bad if my opponent has additional hand hate, but if my opponent has additional Thoughtseizes, they take about the same amount of damage anyway. They play an Ink Moth. Is this green-black Infect? It is. Interesting. Well, we might not be dead. We draw a Goblin Guide. Okay. Play a Mountain. Play a Memnite. Surge Bushwhacker. Go to combat. Attack for a heck of a lot of damage. Opponent does not block, they go to 8. Okay. It basically comes down to whether or not they can 10 infect us this turn. Which, by playing a land that turns on not Might of Old Kroza, but, alright, they can. We lost. Very close game. But that's how the Infect does. Interesting that I'm seeing the green-black Infect deck as frequently as I have been. I've ran into it in 2 leagues now, and I did not think it was that popular. It does have its own merits of being a little more proactive than the green-blue version. It's probably not as resilient, but if you can't afford double Hierarchs, I think green-black is the way to go. We'll play first. If we draw a Whacker, this hand is amazing. I'm gonna keep. Opponent mulligans to 6, which is good news for us. Start Prismatic Vista. Fetch a Mountain. Play Memnite. Play Goblin Guide. Go to combat. And attack for 2. They do draw an Inkmoth Nexus. So the question I have now is, should I Simian Spirit Guide and Devastating Summons and get 2 1/1s? You know what? I'm actually going to do that. My opponent is playing Thoughtseizes, so I want as much value as possible. If my opponent Fetch Shock Thoughtseizes, they're probably going to lose. Okay, opponent plays a Windswept Heath. They fetch. They shock. Alright, they have a Fatal Push. We untap. We draw a Goblin Guide. Play Bloodstained Mire. Crack Bloodstained Mire. Get a Mountain. Play Goblin Guide. Go to combat. They push a guide, probably after we attack. I can't imagine why you would shock otherwise. Yep. Okay. Opponent draws a Windswept Heath and reveals a Vines of Vastwood. They take 5, they go to 10. So, Goblin Grenade is lethal. Bushwhacker is lethal. Not Reckless Bushwhacker, regular Bushwhacker. Opponent plays an Inkmoth Nexus, which means they're probably not killing us this turn. We untap. Regular Bushwhacker. They gotta have a Fatal Push or they die. I guess they could technically animate and block too. Alright, opponent concedes. Game 3. Yeah, I think... So if this deck had a sideboard, the only thing I would ever consider sideboarding in a matchup like this would be Gutshot. And why would I waste a card in hand to gut shot when, like, okay, let's think about this. Opponent does have Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize here would be very bad. They could take Simian Spirit Guide. We could Simian Spirit Guide Bolt on their turn, but on our turn we could go Simian Spirit Guide, Burning Tree Emissary, Signal Pest Bolt, which is not a bad start. And if we draw a land, we'll have Bushwhacker, or if we draw another Simian Spirit Guide. I think this hand is a keep. Mulliganing with this deck is a risky proposition, because you lose out on a card, and this deck is pure card disadvantage, just lighting cards on fire to kill your opponent. So you don't want to mulligan if you don't have to. If your hand is any amount of reasonable, keep it. I would love for my opponent to go Fetch, Shock, Glistener Elf, because then we go Prismatic Vista, Simian Spirit Guide, Burning Tree Emissary, Signal Pest, Bolt, Glistener. And they would have to have 2 mutagenic growths to save it. Noble Hierarch. Oh, opponent is playing Noble Hierarch. Alright, we untap. We draw another Bushwhacker. So play Prismatic Vista. Crack Prismatic Vista. Get a Mountain. Simian Spirit Guide. Burning Tree. And I think because we have 2 whackers now, we just do this. Go to combat. Attack for 5. We're not denying our opponent a mana this way, but we do need to do as much damage as quickly as possible. So, really hoping to top deck another land or Simian Spirit Guide. Both of those would be really good. If not, we're probably just going to play Signal Pest or we're going to Lightning Bolt. Okay, opponent plays a 0/4 blocker and shocks a land. Interesting. Okay. We untap. We draw another Bushwhacker. So, go to combat. Attack. I have a Fatal Push. Sure. Opponent blocks. We can either bolt that, or we can play Signal Pest. We need to bolt that. Which feels terrible, by the way, but I don't think there's another way around that. So next turn we want to draw a land super bad. Simian Spirit Guide is okay, but we need to draw a land. Okay? Opponent does not attack. We untap. We draw a land. So play land. Crack it. Get a mountain. Whack. Go to combat. Attack for 5. So if we top deck another land, we can Signal Pest Whack. Which is basically why this is the most damage possible. It is possible we die. Opponent will have 4 cards in hand because they're going to crack a land. They have more than enough mana to kill us. So it basically just comes down to whether or not they've got it. And if you notice, our opponent Spellskided. They swapped up their deck composition, basically made their deck worse, to try and make their deck better or more resilient versus our deck. And we are just as glass cannon as when we started. We did not dilute our deck with a sideboard. Okay, Might of Old Kroza. If they have another +4/+4, we lose. Oh, this has become immense. Okay. So, they got us. It was very close. They were probably a turn away from dead. But we take 12 Infect. And because they had instants, if I had brought in Gut Shot, and one of these cards was a Gut Shot, I would have lost. Because they didn't need Might of Old Kroza in the graveyard for Become Immense. It wasn't a requirement of them delving. They still have 1 card in hand. Top deck Kuldotha Rebirth wouldn't do anything. Okay. So they were like 2 turns from dead. We could have whacked. They had to have blocked, and then they would have gone to 1. And I think we would have been probably at like 9 Infect, so we probably would have died anyway. Okay. So we didn't win. We were very close though. So we're 2-1 going into round 4. All right, we'll play first. Always take the play. All right. Ooh, this is incredibly good. So we keep. The question is, what line do we take? If we top deck another land or a Simian Spirit Guide, this hand goes from great to insane. So we can either start Kuldotha Rebirth or Goblin Guide. We're going to start Goblin Guide. Go to combat. Attack for 2. Opponent reveals Ethereal Armor, so it's Boggles. Boggles is going to be a really tough matchup. Been seeing a lot of Boggles. Okay, they play a Boggle. We untap. We draw Signal Pest. So, Ornithopter, Rebirth, go to combat, attack for 2. They have a Rancor on top of their deck. The good news is they can't get lifelink next turn. The question is whether or not we play Signal Pest this turn, and I think we do. I wanted to save the mana for Whack, but with this particular... If it was regular Bushwhacker, I would have kept it. But because it is Reckless Bushwhacker, and we would need to top deck a 0 mana spell in order to cast Reckless Bushwhacker, I think playing this is better. Okay? Opponent plays a Griff Spoon, So they can block Signal Pest if they want. We untap. We draw Goblin Guide. Play Goblin Guide. Go to combat. Attack for a lot. Basically, unless my opponent has Daybreak Coronet, I think we win. They're going to be drawing a Spirit Link, so that is a way they can gain life. They block down Goblin Guide and go to 4. Okay? So Spirit Link, now if my opponent does not have Vigilance and can't attack with Spirit Link, they're still going to lose. Because Spirit Link does not grant Lifelink. Spirit Link is a delayed trigger. So in the combat math, if you die before the triggered ability goes off, then you lose. If my opponent has a Daybreak Coronet, we lose. Okay, yeah, they're going to gain 11 and go to 13. We would have to... Let's see. So we attack, and we'd have to, like, bolt our creature that they block. If Goblin Grenade was an instant, first off, it'd be broken as hell. But if Goblin Grenade was an instant, our opponent would block Goblin Guide, we'd Goblin Grenade them, and I think they would die. Because they would take 6, and then 5, go to 8. No, actually, they go to 8, then 3. No. Okay. Well, we got a little unlucky. Opponent just ended up having Daybreak Coronet. And it had to be Daybreak Coronet, because if they played Spirit Link, they would have died. Because they would have had to attack, and then we would have dealt enough damage on the backswing that it wouldn't have mattered. So we'll be on the play again, hopefully with a better hand. All right, we'll play first. Yeah, I can keep this. So start Prismatic Vista, crack, get a mountain, play Ornithopter, and Rebirth. Pass the turn. We gave up 2 damage that turn to do this. Okay, opponent starts a Razor Verge Thicket, which is unfortunately not a pain land of any kind. They play a Slippery Boggle. We draw a mountain. Play Goblin Guide. Go to combat. Attack for 5. Opponent reveals Rancor. Okay, they go to 15. So worst case scenario, my opponent plays Rancor Spirit Link here. Having to fetch is good, because they're losing life of their own accord. They do have basics, though. Okay, Spider Umbra, Ethereal Armor. Opponent can stay back on defense, which they're going to. Lightning Bolt them. Untap. We draw a Memnite. So play a Snow-Covered Mountain. Go to combat. Attack with everybody. Opponent reveals a Glade Cover Scout. This is Luris Boggles. Interesting, I never even noticed. Okay, they block down Goblin Guide. They take 3 and go to 8. So we kind of need to draw a Bushwhacker here. Play Memnite. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Horizon Canopy. And once again, we lose to a Daybreak Coronet. They play Rancor. And they have the Daybreak Coronet. Quite unfortunate, but we don't really, like... Even if we had a sideboard here, right? What could we do? Engineered Explosives on 1? Like, what would we do? We'd make our deck worse. So, like, we could play Skullcrack, maybe? Prevent them from gaining life? But they don't tap to attack. So, like, you know, I don't think, like, a sideboard would help. I really don't. You could argue with me in the comments if you'd like, but I really don't think it would help. And both games, they were very close to dead. They just happened to get Daybreak Coronet. Because like I said, Spirit Link wouldn't do it, because it doesn't give them Vigilance, and it's a delayed trigger. We just got a little bit of unlucky draws there on our opponent's behalf and on our behalf. So I'll see you guys in round 5. Let's see if we can 3-2 with a deck with no sideboard. So in jankier news, I considered running things like Chancellor of the Forge to get a free Goblin. And I was like, well, then what do I do with a 7-mana spell in my hand that I will never cast in any universe? And I was like, it's too bad that like Blazing Shoal is banned, or that there isn't a fair red pitch card that exists, you know? Because if there was, I would totally run Chancellor of the Forge and a card I could use to pitch it. I'm going to keep this. It's not the most amazing hand in the world, but I am going to keep it. But like what you could do is you could play Fury of the Horde, but then you're pitching too many cards and you're already at maximum card disadvantage, so it's just not worth it. Alright, so my opponent is either playing Storm, or they are playing, what's it called? Blitz. That's what I'm trying to say. So we're going to start Signal Pest, nothing else. Okay? Opponent plays a Bloodstained Mire, cracks it, gets a Watery Grave, untapped. It's good news for us. Bolts Signal Pest. Passes. We untap. We draw Devastating Summons. Okay. So, play a Mountain. Pass the turn. Our opponent is probably Grixis Death Shadow. They play a Swamp. They pass. Lightning Bolt. Okay. We untap. We draw Devastating Summons. So, this is incredulously risky, but we can't afford to not do this. Devastating Summons. Sack our lands. If our opponent has their Force Spike, we can pay for it, and then use Simian Spirit Guide to get Bushwhacker. Okay, Stubborn Denial. We will pay for it. Cast Memnite. Simian Spirit Guide. Whack. Best card our opponent could have is Fatal Push. They're still going to take a lot of damage here. Go to combat. Attack for 8. Take our opponent to 3. Okay, let's see what they got. They play a Bauble. Crack Bauble. Look at the top card of our deck. Play Death Shadow. Play Death Shadow. Pass the turn. We untap. They draw a card. We draw Mountain. So, Mountain. And Devastating Summons. Get 2 1/1s. Pass the turn. If they have Temur Battle Rage, we just die. There's nothing we can do about that. Okay, Blood Crypt tapped. No attacks. We untap. We draw Bloodstained Mire. Go to combat. Swing for the fences. Opponent blocks and blocks. They have a Fatal Push. Okay. They take 2, go to 1. And we die on the backswing. Hey, it was worth a shot. And we're against the Life Loss deck, which is good news for us, really. Alright. No sideboard. We took them to 1, and they had the perfect combination of spells that won versus that ridiculous start. They had to have multiple Fatal Pushes, multiple blockers. They had to have the mana to do all of that without spending 1 more life than they did. I don't think that's very likely. We will play first. We will keep this. Just need 1 mana, and this hand is nuts. So, play Bloodstained Mire, crack it, get a Mountain, play Goblin Guide, play Memnite, go to combat, and attack for 2. Opponent reveals a Scalding Tarn and draws it. They take 2 and go to 18. They untap, they play a Bauble, they look at the top card of their own deck, they play a Scalding Tarn, they crack it, they get a Watery Grave untapped. Thoughtseize. Okay. So our opponent probably takes a Bushwhacker. Doesn't really matter which one at this point. Okay. We untap. They draw a card. We draw Ornithopter. So play an Ornithopter. Go to combat. Attack for 3. Opponent reveals. Fatal Push. That sucks. Okay, so they go to 10. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Bloodstained Mire, which is guaranteed life loss at the very least. They fetch a Swamp. Death Shadow. Death Shadow. Okay. We untap. We draw Goblin Guide. Play Goblin Guide. Pass the turn, no attacks. But our opponent now has a Fatal Push and big threats. They know we still have a Bushwhacker in hand as well. Okay. No attacks, no fetch, no shock. We draw a Mountain, so we're just gonna all out this. Ornithopter. Ornithopter. I haven't done the math, but math is for blockers. And it's not like we came here to not do this. I guess my opponent could have a mana leak, and that would be the worst thing in the world. But they can block, Fatal Push here, take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage, which would be 20, and then they'll kill us. Or if they do the math wrong, they'll concede. I guess it depends. Okay. Go to combat, attack, and we are all out of tricks. Opponent reveals Lightning Bolt on top of their deck. They fetch. Okay. They get a Blood Crypt, tapped. And they push a guide. They reveal Seal of Fire. They block guide. They block whack. They take 5. They go to 3. And unfortunately, have exactly 20 damage for the backswing. Well, hey, I think we did pretty good for a deck with no sideboard. So, let's, can I go back to view the record that I had? Okay, here we go. Okay, so we got to see the power of this deck match 1 and match 2. It is not an incredibly consistent deck, but it is consistent enough that you could jank out some wins. That's how 8-whack is. We saw the power of this deck in round 3 versus green-black infect, and the only reason we lost is because they have the same like turn count on their combo. We were incredibly close to beating them. So this could have easily been a 3-2. And versus Boggles, they had Daybreak Coronet both times, which, I mean, they're as likely to draw that as they are any other card. They run 4. But that's really the only reason we lost, is because they had Daybreak Coronet. The only reason we saw Boggles is because we got into the loser's bracket. Sorry, Boggles. I shouldn't talk trash on a deck that absolutely smacked us down, but I'm going to. And versus Death Shadow Aggro, it's like same thing. We probably wouldn't have seen them that late in the league unless we were in the loser's bracket. And while our first starting hand was pretty close to ideal, so was theirs. At least an ideal counter for ours. And our second hand was not as perfect, and the math worked out that they happened to kill us. We probably could have waited, but our opponent had a Fatal Push, and I'm not sure what we could have top decked that would have made that much better. So I still think going for it was accurate. Anyway, I highly recommend not playing this deck, unless you want to really style on some people. If you have like $5 and you don't have a Moto deck, and you're itching to play Magic, and you're like, I don't care what kind of Magic I play, I just want to play Magic, buy this deck. You'll win. It costs nothing. Like, it's $2 for Goblin Guide, and I think it's $2 for one of the Bushwhackers, and it might be $1 for the Signal Pests. You don't even have to run snow-covered mountains, just any mountain, and they're free. So, oh, you know what? The Simian Spirit Guides cost. Those cost money, like $1 each. So $6 at most, and you can be playing a competitive deck with no sideboard. I'll see you guys next time. If you like this video, you want to see more, leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. And remember, I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, over on Twitch. Same username there as you can find me on here. And you're all wonderful human beings. Thanks for watching. I'll try and have another video out every time I record a video with Tron to keep those people placated. But I can't guarantee that at this time. I'm just going to do my best. See you guys next time. Bye!